Good evening, Jean. As we know, tonight is the eve of the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel on the 16th of July. And I was wondering, what was the origin of the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel?
Good evening to you, Francesca. Thank you very much for asking this question. The Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel is initially a very discreet feast. It didn't belong to the universal liturgical calendar, but the more the time went and the more this feast started to be more and more known for different reasons here and there, especially for the devotion to the brown scapula. In certain countries, it spread a lot, and therefore, the presence of the Carmelites also helped a lot to spread this feast. Initially, I think the Carmelites were celebrating it in the 15th of July, and it just moved after to the 16th. The origin of the feast is directly linked to the Carmelite order. The Carmelite order, as some would know, is in fact a very ancient order. It doesn't have a proper founder like many other orders, like the Dominicans have Saint Dominic, Benedictines have Saint Benedict, Franciscans Saint Francis. The Carmelites don't have a founder. They have reformers, but not founders, and they consider their father, their spiritual father, to be the prophet Elijah, who worshipped God in the Old Testament. Of course, we find this in the first book of Kings, chapter 18, and the following. He worshipped God in the Mount Carmel in a cave. He had a school of prophets, as the expression happens to appear, and he has his first disciple there mentioned in the Old Testament, and then in the New Testament we have here the archaeological findings say that we had first on the Mount Carmel, after Jesus, after Christ, the Christian era, many hermits did worship God in this mountain. Why? Because very earlier on, Elijah was considered as the epitome or the incarnation, if you want, of the monk, the paradigm of the monk himself. When you read Saint Athanasius, when he writes his life of Saint Anthony, which will influence a lot the entire church, Saint Anthony being the father of all the monks, he starts with Elijah. So Elijah has been considered always as, since he never married, he's really the example of all the monks. And so, as I said, you had various moments in the history of the Mount Carmel till the 12th century. A first history, a Byzantine history, more Greek. Then we move on to a Roman one, and then the Carmelites will then, the hermits will, if you want, it's the first moment of greater awareness. They will go to the Bishop of Jerusalem, Albert, and they will ask him to approve a rule. So this is, if you want, the first moment where we have something more visible, more palpable about these hermits. So we are now at that junction in the 12th century, or a little bit before. These hermits will have to move from the Holy Land from Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel, by the way, is situated in the north of the Holy Land, in the western part of the actual city of Haifa, and is facing the sea, and is known in the Bible to be an epitome of the beauty. When God speaks about beauty, he says, I will give beauty, the beauty of Carmel, because it's not a high mountain, and it has a lot of, or probably it used to be very beautiful, trees and flowers and plantations, etc. So, yeah, so I was just saying that the hermits had to flee, they had to leave the Holy Land because of the presence of the Muslims, the Arab Muslims, who occupied from that moment onward the holy places. So they went to the south of France and here in Aylesford, here in England, and they started a new life. So from being totally unknown, they started to be a little bit known, and they were aggregated to the Mendicant orders. Mendicant orders were the new orders then. Franciscans and Dominicans were new foundations at that time, new concept, if you want, of a presence in the city. So these hermits now became a little bit similar to the Franciscans and the Dominicans. It happened this way. They could have been aggregated to the more monastic orders like the Benedictines or the Cistercians, but it didn't happen that way. Anyway, so it is because of the Carmelites and their devotion to Our Lady, and especially at a certain moment in the beginning of the time here in the Western world, the known Western world at that time, the Superior General of the Carmelites here in Aylesford, Saint Simon Stock, was praying Our Lady, because he felt, especially in the beginning, they weren't known, so their presence in the Western world, in the church in the Western world, was a little bit threatened. So he prayed a lot for the protection of Our Lady, and she appeared to him, showing him what we today know as the bronze scapula, which is this piece of cloth that the many orders wear, but the Carmelites, they have it, and it's brown. So there is like a hole you go put through your head, and then you have a part in the back and a part in the front, and then you have, through the years, this scapula becomes smaller and smaller. I personally am wearing one. It's very, very, very small, almost invisible. You have a piece of cloth inside here in the front and a piece of cloth inside in the back. So that's, if you want, the portable, more portable, quote unquote, form of the scapula. So Our Lady appears with this sign, with the scapula, saying to Simon Stock that this sign, whoever wears this scapula will benefit from her protection. Of course, providing the person, we are fulfilling our duties as Christians with prayer and, avoiding sin and seeking the sacraments, etc., and keeping it on, because there is then a promise, then whoever dies wearing the scapula, of course, with devotion, with love to Our Lady, and providing all what I said, then the immediate following Saturday, Our Lady promised that he or she will be in heaven with her, which is a beautiful promise. By the way, Pope John Paul II was wearing the scapular, and indeed he died on a Saturday. So it shows, when you die on a Saturday and you're wearing the scapular, so that sort of says something. Otherwise, if you die on a Sunday or a Monday, then you have the entire week to wait until the door opens. It's a way to say things. Of course, this is God's things, not ours, but this is the promise. So the feast then, the Carmelites have the patronal feast initially is not Our Lady of Mount Carmel. The patronal feast initially, I'm talking here many centuries ago, like in the Middle Ages, was rather the Assumption of Our Lady. That was first the patronal feast of the Carmelite order. Then it's not very known, but it's true. And then it will move to the 15th, and then finally to the 16th, and after it will enter in the universal calendar, you know, because you have many feasts. Sometimes they are regional,
Yes.
Regional either geographically or regional in spiritual families, like orders or congregations or you know, parts of the church. Then the feast, when the awareness grows, the feast becomes universal. So feast became then after universal. Hence its presence in the liturgical calendar today, the universal. So it's not only the Carmelites who celebrate it, but for them, of course, it's a solemnity, and for whoever has a devotion to with the brown scapular or to Our Lady of Mount Carmel, of course, for him or her, it's a solemnity. We are already in it from the first Vespers right now. But also everybody, it's of course not mandatory, I think, I'm not sure, but everybody can celebrate this Mass. And by the way, it's the last apparition of Our Lady to Bernadette at Lourdes was on the 16th of July. She appeared, Bernadette said, she never appeared so beautiful. She was never so beautiful as this last apparition. And also, that was the only apparition where Our Lady didn't talk at all. So that's interesting. Yeah, she was silent. So it says something about spiritual life. So yes, so this is, if you want, the historical part of it, the more material part of it, without delving too much into any depth.
Well, Jean, what is the connection then, the link between the feast and the brown scapular?
The connection between this feast and the scapular? Well, actually, sometimes we mix things. Many people, and there's nothing wrong in that, because it's also the feast of the brown scapular, because the Carmelites wanted to celebrate that moment when Our Lady offered or renewed, because the scapular was probably already there, but renewed her presence and offered the sign as really a promise of protection and taking us as in a deeper way as her children. So very often, if you want, this feast is considered to be the feast of the brown scapular. Now, the feast itself is Our Lady, no? It's Our Lady as she is known and understood by the Carmelites. And maybe we could talk about this after, but it's there is a spiritual dimension also to this feast that doesn't appear immediately in time. And I have to say, I'm maybe anticipating now, that this spiritual dimension developed a lot with the recent texts after Vatican II. The Carmelites, like all other orders, had to renew their the text of the liturgy, and the fruit of this renewal, we have very beautiful and very deep texts, and I'm alluding more specifically not only to the readings but to the preface. The preface in the Mass is the moment, the text, the prayer just before the Eucharistic prayer that the priest uses just after "Lift up your hearts." This is when the preface starts, and then it ends by "Let us join the angels and the saints and say, Holy, holy, holy." So it's the text just between them. It's this prayer, and we have the priest has a choice between two prefaces, and they are of utter depth and beauty. So coming back to a question, what is the relationship? I can say that sometimes it's, instead of saying it's the feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, people say it's the feast of the brown scapular. In certain countries, people will gather and it will be a little bit crazy. I witnessed that in certain countries, and the scapular would be distributed to people, etc. So, of course, you have a dimension of devotion here, which is, of course, a popular devotion, I would say, which is always, and this is fair, we have to accept it, that has a bit of fervor, if you want, human fervor, mixed to really deep values. So we need to be careful here. We have to respect the weakness of the human being in the popular devotion, because there are values, there are deep values involved in it, but not always seen. Hence the necessity of explaining, as maybe I'm doing it now, presenting, reminding. That's the task then of all the people who help these feasts or solemnities to be better known.
So it really is of great relevance to today, then.
Absolutely, it is the brown scapular. I would almost say that for certain people today and tomorrow, of course, so because we are on the 15 eve, we are the eve. It's the feast of the brown scapular for many. It's the moment where they will receive it. It's the moment where the old one is so completely worn down. They will just have a new one, etc. You know, and of course you have processions, more traditional ways of celebrating. You have processions of the statue of Our Lady that will go around the inside of the church or outside of the church or in the streets, literally in certain countries, like more of a Spanish influence. Our Lady of Mount Carmel is extremely present, either in Spain, I mean, traditionally, maybe now less, but traditionally extremely present, and also extremely present in all Latin America, at least, and many other countries. And it's also linked to Our Lady Star of the Sea. So you'll have ports or churches close to the sea where you'll have Our Lady of Mount Carmel, but she's seen rather as the Star of the Sea because of Elijah. Yeah, there is a dimension here that I should underline. In the Middle Ages, we have texts here from the Carmelites, John Backenthorpe and others, and Arnold Bostius. I'm talking here Middle Ages. They talk about their understanding and their reading of certain texts of the Bible. They're lucky, the Carmelites, to have their origins in the Bible and not just any founder or anything. It's very beautiful and very deep. So when Elijah, I don't know if you remember, but in the beginning of the story, the narrative about Elijah, he starts by almost commanding a drought. So there is no water at all for 3 years. Then he goes to a widow, and then she will feed him for 3 years during this drought, and he will drink from a source of water. Now, then Elijah will pray, will go on the mountain and pray, and he will ask his servant boy present there to go and have a look if the rain is coming. And he will go 7 times, and it's only at the 7th time, and Elijah is praying, that he will see a little cloud. And the little cloud, Elijah understands that this is the beginning of the big shower. And then it will be a huge rain, very powerful rain. And Elijah warns the king and says, go down, the rain will be very, very powerful. So the Carmelites, when they read this, it's very interesting because they put themselves a little bit in the shoes of Elijah praying, and what they see this little cloud at the size of a human hand. They saw in this cloud Our Lady, because this cloud will bring the rain, and the rain being the grace of God, being Jesus bringing the Holy Spirit. So it's because of Mary that we will receive Jesus. No, this is a very traditional thing. And even this image, this Marian interpretation, is present in authors who are not Carmelites. That's important also to know, because otherwise people will think, oh, that's a Carmelite thing. No, well, there are other people also who saw that. So that's interesting also. So this Marian dimension, Elijah and Mary, present from the beginning, is also part of the Our Lady of Mount Carmel. We celebrate the one who will bring Jesus. And then later on, I could add that there is a spiritualization of the understanding of Mount Carmel. The top of Mount Carmel is considered, for instance, by John of the Cross as the union with God. He doesn't say that Mary is the one who will lead us there, but one can presume that that's what he has in his mind. He never said it, by the way. He said faith, the pure faith. But now we could say Mary's pure faith, as the preface will do. The preface will have a track of genius. We might talk about it a little bit after, you see. So hence also, you see the sea, the star of the sea, the presence of Mary there, because, you know, Mount Carmel is facing the sea. When you are at Mount Carmel, the only thing you can see is the sea. So Our Lady, who helps people who are in the middle of the sea, in the difficulties of the sea, all the sailors who would have a devotion for her, then come back, and you know, so you'd have these chapels of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. So there is also this aspect, you know, the devotion is endless. The devotional aspect of it is endless, but certainly mainly the scapular, yes.
I always wondered why there was a star in the logo of the Carmelites.
There are three stars, by the way.
Three of them.
Yeah,
you can see the mount. You can see that clearly.
Yeah, you have
and the cross. Yes,
yeah, the cross, and then you have two stars on each side, and then one in the middle.
Yes.
Yeah. You can have any sort of experience. There is no official one, if you want, like stable official one. The Discalced Carmelites saw it as the three stars of being faith, hope, and love, who lead us to the top of the mountain.
I see.
But it's not a unique or privileged even interpretation. You have three stars, that's it. I don't want to delve into that, because there is no, if it were something stable and clear and defined constantly, yeah, we would say. But to my knowledge, I might be wrong, but to my knowledge, there is a bit of flexibility here, and the stars were also seen as these lights in the middle of the darkness, of the light of faith, the light of hope, and the light of love.
Jean, about a year ago, or a bit more, a friend of mine received the brown scapular, and also at that ceremony, he was consecrated to Our Lady. And I was wondering, what is the relationship between the two?
Yeah. The brown scapular, as I said, is absolutely, there is a relationship, because the brown scapular, in a way, it's a mutual gift. Our Lady offers herself to us in the form of that cloth, because it's a piece of cloth, that it's her cloth. St. Teresa of Avila always says it's her cloth. It's not the clothes that the Carmelites are wearing, it's Mary's clothes that they are wearing. So you are clothed by Our Lady. So imagine the power of the sign here. It's really like she embraces you, she covers you, she protects you. But as I say, it's a mutual gift. She's offering herself to us as our mother, as our guide. We might see that later, as a spiritual teacher, if you want. And on the other hand, in order for the connection to happen, we need to offer ourselves. And as I said, and this, I think many people don't pay attention to that point. This is why I rarely talk about the scapular, because of the point I will mention right now. The promise is linked to our death in the sense that I offer protection, and the day the person will die, the next Saturday, they're wearing it, the next Saturday, they will be with me in heaven. Now, it means when the person dies, the person should be wearing it. So this means it implied automatically that nobody removes the scapula. If the scapula becomes old or torn or whatever, you just put the new one and remove the old one. Once you received it the first time, it is imposed by a priest, preferably a Carmelite priest, but any other priest who will have the text of the imposition of the brown scapula can impose the brown scapula. There's no problem at all. But then normally, because it's linked to a promise that is related to death and we never know when we will die, then we shouldn't remove it. So people will say, but I need to shower, I need to go to the sea, I need to go to the swimming pool. Yes, but thank God we have these fantastic scapulas that have the cloth inside. This is modern now. And the outer part is a cover, a plastic cover that protects it. And the string here is of good quality, so it never is never damaged. I can wear it maybe 4 or 5 years. I don't know. I never counted. And then if it's worn, you put another one. And you can buy them online. But of course, a priest first, the first one, needs to bless and impose. Then after that, just bless the scapular and then put it. So coming back to your question, yes, there is a dimension of consecration to Our Lady, of belonging, if you prefer. She offers herself to you. You wear the scapula, which means you accept and receive her protection, her love, her presence, her guidance, all that, all the time, non-stop. So it's extra. But in the same time, you commit to not removing it. This is why, as I said, I never mention the scapula because it's too binding. It's for my perception, if you want. I don't like to bind people. We are freed by God, freed by Jesus on the cross. We need to, when it is only the right time, to have this wearing the scapula. Now, you mentioned consecration. There are people who consecrate themselves to Our Lady. They do the 30 days of preparation for the consecration, and then they do the consecration. Of course, in my humble view, if you went through all that long journey of preparing yourself to consecrate yourself, and you really want it and you really mean it, it is totally in harmony with that idea that then you may wear a sign of this consecration. And the scapula is extremely discreet. I know there are people who like to put it and show it or whatever, but it's very discreet. I mean, nobody understands even what it is. And you can create a little bit of a knot here and a knot there, so it won't even come out. If I dive in the swimming pool, it doesn't come out, you know, because I just created a sort of a knot here. So it is flexible, it's not dangerous for me or for whoever, and then it's there, it's discreet, nobody knows it. Maybe you didn't know the scapular. Okay, you see. So I think there is, it's a visible sign, but I have to say, and this is not enough underlined, it is really a powerful protection. I have to confess humbly that here only experience is talking. I never removed the scapula in my entire life since December 85. I removed it only one night by error. By error. I don't have to tell the story, but by error I removed it. And I have to say, without entering in any detail, that yes, I felt a huge difference between that protection and its absence. But again, it's not a magical thing, you see. And sometimes people, which is linked to the popular devotion, they might fall into using it as a magical protection, like do whatever you want to do, it will work anyway, or this or that. But it is true that it protects. I witnessed many, you know, I'm 58 years old, so I knew people of the last century who really were more, I would say, old-fashioned, if you want. And they told me stories. I remember Brother Domingo at the Desierto de las Palmas in Spain, in one of the monasteries, beautiful monasteries of the Carmelites, who told me we had a big fire that threatened to burn the entire monastery. All the fields were in fire. And we went out, I don't know which priest went out, and he threw scapulars, and the fire stopped at the limit where he threw the scapulars. You believe, you don't believe. It's not the core of the scapular, obviously. Obviously, that's not the scapular. But I'm showing you how the simplicity and the trust, the old Carmelites, now they're all dead, had in the scapular, even in this way. I knew nuns, Carmelite nuns, I won't mention where, in order not to offend or reveal, who had a huge devotion, that type of devotion. They would put the scapular in certain strategic points in the monastery. I understand it looks, many people will get very upset with me saying this, but I think it's important to understand that it's not a toy, it's not an amulet, it's not a, how do you say that, the magic say
a potion, magic
not potion, but the amulet. Do you have the expression in English?
Yes, an amulet. Yes.
Yeah, it's not, of course, an amulet. It's not a magical tool or object, rather. It's something very deep, but also it's her cloth. So it's your belief in that. That's it. I don't want to go too much on that aspect, because I think that's enough on the material side of it, because the spiritual side is something completely different.
Before we go into the purely spiritual side, could I ask just one question? Whenever I talk to my friends about the brown scapular, they've got some pretty strange ideas about how you wear it. Some don't want to wear it over the shoulder, as you say, because it's itchy, it scratches, or because it's visible if they're wearing, a décolleté dress. Exactly. Others prefer to wear the medal. So just exactly what would you suggest we do?
I am a little bit of an old-fashioned person. I stick to how it was. I don't like to change things. The promise is linked to the cloth itself. I know some people wear the medal and even attach it to their bra or whatever. I understand all these issues. This is why, again and again, I don't like to talk about the scapular. You know me, I don't know, from many years, and there are people who know me even from 20, 25, 30 years. I never talk about the scapular. While it's a daily thing for me, or at least it should be a daily thing for me, I think it's a delicate issue because it binds, and it binds physically. And to bind physically, I don't like that. I think we have to be free in our understanding. But the classical, the traditional understanding is you wear it, but you wear it because you entered in a new phase in your life. So if you don't want to wear it because you have a décolleté, well, then there is, it's a choice you made. You have to accept it. I know women who don't care. Young women who don't care. They will keep their scapular. I'm talking about something very small. I'm not talking the people who will have the big square thing, the brown thing. I'm talking about this small item.
Yes.
You see, I understand it looks strange. I'm not discussing that. It will continue to look strange. I'm not discussing that, but I'm saying it's a little bit more discreet. It's not flashy. People can never know what is this thing unless you already heard about it. So, as I say, I stick to the promise. It has to be physical. It has to be a real piece of cloth. It has to be front and back, and you have to wear it and you don't remove it. Now, I know people who received the imposition of the scapular, and after a while they took it off. I know people who take it off regularly. I know people who moved from the piece of cloth to the medal. I know people who attach their scapular on their bra. I know all sorts of solutions. I'm not here as a judge. I'm just here as a person who shares how I personally received it. I didn't invent it. I received it. And the priest, the Carmelite priest, he died now. I think last year he died. Who imposed it to me, the scapular, December 85, said, okay, this is it. And you don't ever remove it, as I explained. And if you want to change it, you put a new one, and that's it. I'm not here to say this is wrong or this is right. I'm saying what is right. The rest, I'm not a judge. I'm not. Each person with the. But I say that I insist on the difficulty, the commitment, and the unease part of it. It's uneasy. It's like, oh, I have to put it. I don't like to put something. Do you think I like to put something? Never. You see me wearing my watch, but very rarely. I don't like it. I hardly wear my ring, my marriage ring. That's it. I don't like to wear things, but still, I have the scapular.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't want to go too much on that, more on that subject, because we will then lose a little bit of the most interesting part that maybe will strengthen the material part. Because if you don't see the meaning, then what's the point of just putting something? It's like a trend, it's like a fashion. One day you put it and then another day you remove it. It's a spiritual fashion. No, it's not a spiritual fashion. So, sorry.
Okay, well, then I was wondering, why is Our Lady of Mount Carmel the patroness of the School of Mary?
Oh, that's interesting. Why Our Lady of Mount Carmel was seen and spontaneously accepted, chosen as the patroness of the patron feast of the School of Mary. Allow me to say something that will shed a light on that. In recent decades, with the renewal of the liturgy, the Carmelites wrote. I don't have details about who wrote it and how he picked it this way, but it's a fact. We have the two prefaces, and you can have a look at the link at least to one of these two prefaces below this video. In these two prefaces, we have a little summary of a spirituality, of the deep meaning of Our Lady, and this meaning of her clothing us, offering us her eyes and her heart, and her being our guide to lead us to the mountain, the top of the mountain of the union with Jesus, because the mountain symbolizes Jesus, and reaching the top of the mountain means reaching the union. Who leads us, who helps us, who teaches us, who is our spiritual mother? It's Our Lady. So the feast, in fact, has a huge spiritual side to it that is not only typical to the Carmelites. As I said, now it's in the universal calendar. And more so, what happened is the following. The church in the recent years wanted to create a series of devotional masses that a priest could choose during the year when there are no festivals of solemnities of Sunday or Saturday, etc. He could choose one of these devotional masses. So we have that book. That book exists. It's called, just give me a second. Sorry about that. Sorry. Yeah, the book is called The Collection of Masses of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Okay, and in this collection, you have various titles of Our Lady, and each title is like a different perspective or angle. Like Our Lady is a big diamond, and you move the diamond a little bit and it reflects Jesus' light in a different way. And one of these reflections is the Mass number 32, or the Devotional Mass number 32. And it has as a title, Our Lady, Mother and Teacher of Spiritual Life. And teacher in Latin, of course, the original text is in Latin, is magistra. Magistra means the master of spiritual life. So she is mother and master of spiritual life. And it's very interesting to notice that this devotional mass has been totally inspired by the two prefaces of the feast of the solemnity of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which belong to the particular liturgy of the Carmelite order. So they sort of took the essence of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, but strangely, it wasn't presented as Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Since it's a devotional mass, you can say it at any time during the year when there is no other obligations. The priest can choose that and celebrate that mass anytime he wants. The name changed, so it's not Our Lady of Mount Carmel. It's Our Lady, Mother, spiritual mother, and master or teacher. The English translation is teacher of spiritual life. I prefer master, but I understand now that the translator has to do tough choices. And it took the essence, and the essence is the following. And unfortunately, the translation is not always faithful. And all the presentation of that devotional mass is almost a copy-paste from the Our Lady of Mount Carmel, the Carmelites. So it tells the story briefly about Our Lady of Mount Carmel, etc., the Carmelites, and then it moves on to the meaning of this devotional mass. And what is the most beautiful part of it, which is, of course, comes from the preface, the two prefaces, the second preface more precisely, is that the text says the following. The text says that, and here is a very deep understanding of the scapular, by the way. It says that we are called to contemplate Jesus, the Word of God, not with our mind, spiritu in Latin, but we can say mind, but with Mary's mind. So the scapular is a physical sign of a deep gift where Mary is giving us as a means, as a tool, as something that belongs to us, her own capacity to contemplate Jesus. Who would dare to ask for such a present? And it is there as a deep truth deposited first in the Carmelite spirituality or Carmelite understanding of this feast, of their relationship with Our Lady. But now it belongs to the entire church because of that move they made, which by creating this Mass number 32. So the text continues and says that we are called to love our brothers, but you may also say God, because we need to love God and the brothers, not only the brothers. We are called to love our brothers with her heart. It is so deep, so beautiful, so spiritual, and so unusual and challenging in a way. And it is so challenging that almost all the translators in the languages I can read failed to give the right translation. They changed it. I did a little work, and you could see it in the article below, at least for the English language. But if you read Italian, if you read French and other languages, you will notice that there are always slight changes in the text.
Yeah.
The text is very powerful, is very clear and sharp. Her spirit, spiritu, which means a spirit, or if you want her mind, we use her mind to contemplate. So I'm not contemplating Jesus at the image or imitation of Our Lady. No, that's still too weak. I'm meditating or contemplating, rather, contemplating, the verb is contemplating, Jesus, the Word of God, with her mind. Nothing less than Mary's mind is given to us through this gift of the scapular. And nothing less than her heart is given to us so we could love God and love our neighbors. Of course, love our brothers. The loving God is not mentioned in the text, but we can just deduce it. Since we have her heart, with the heart you love. Okay. Now, the text says also, the Carmelite one, the first preface says that the Carmelites are called Carmelites, but be careful, Carmelites, all the people who are affiliated to the Carmelites, if you wear the scapular, or if you don't wear the scapular, you are not affiliated, but you have a great devotion to Our Lady as Our Lady of Mount Carmel, you're drawing closer. He says all these people, and I would say the entire church, by the way, I don't think it's a particular private thing, it belongs to everybody, all religious, all consecrated, all baptized, full stop. They are called to be her living image in the world. So we are not only, it's a genuine, simple, direct consequence of, if I have her mind and I have her heart, well then I am her image, and I try, of course we're not, but we are called to, since we are close by her. So who appears? It's her, not us. So hopefully we represent her. So this goes back to something very deep that is not mentioned in the text, which is contemplating, before all that, the relationship that exists between Our Lady and Jesus. This, the Catechism of the Catholic Church did it. And various texts of Pope John Paul II did it, which is saying, okay, Jesus is everything. Jesus is our goal. We want to reach union with Jesus. Nobody, says the Catechism, was better disciple than Mary. Nobody has greater faith in Jesus than Mary. Mary is the embodiment, the archetype of the disciple of Jesus. Why? Because you can say here, it's not in the text, but you can say that she contemplated and loved Jesus perfectly. And now this feast tells you, or this devotion, or this spirituality, if you want, tells you that it's given to you. So we are not doing it at imitation, and at the imitation of Mary. We are not imitating Mary. No, that's still a distance.
Yes.
It's her mind that is given to us. It's her heart. So you see, silence and prayer are, though I think, the best way to receive this present of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. If we wear the scapular, I think it's an opportunity to deepen our understanding of it. If we already consecrated ourselves to her, I think it's not bad to receive the imposition of the scapular, but above all that and before all that, to meditate this mind-blowing theology that we find in these two prefaces of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. I think that a correct understanding of the place of Our Lady toward Jesus, which we find in different texts in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and we can meditate on them. And if we understand, and this is here the advantage of the fruits of this Our Lady of Mount Carmel, of the Carmelite spirituality, if we understand the fact that this is the gift of God for us, it's mind-blowing. Paul VI mentions that. St. Ambrose quotes have a beautiful quote also: "Let the Spirit of Mary in me praise the Lord." Paul VI, in one of his encyclical letters on Our Lady. And I think it helps us also understand even Grignon de Montfort in a deep way, very much present in this French school of spirituality from its beginning, with Cardinal de Bérulle, Jean-Jacques Ollier, Condrin, and Saint John Eudes, also Saint Jean Eudes. So I think that with this in mind, we are in front of something of utter beauty and utter depth. When we think that this is in fact that we are what we are celebrating today, it's simply mind-blowing. Thank you, Lord, for giving us not just a piece of cloth, for giving us her. Saint Therese of the Child Jesus says it in her poem to Our Lady, and all this is in the text below. You can find it and read it and meditate on it. She says, aren't the virtues of the mother, aren't they, don't they belong to the daughter or to the child, to her child? So Therese is saying that all the virtues of Our Lady, all what a person belong to her, and she's a Carmelite.
Thank you, Jean. It makes it quite clear now why she is the patron saint, the patroness of the School of Mary. It just wouldn't
Yes,
be.
it's true. I went completely astray. I haven't answered your question, but I think it sheds a light.
Yes.
Because, thank you for reminding me. In fact, I went too astray. The main reason, because she's master of spiritual life, mother
Yes.
and master of spiritual life. I think this is the fruit of the Carmelite feast, which is this devotional mass. And I think it summarizes the School of Mary. The School of Mary is not my personal initiative. I would never dare go there because it's to be wrong and dangerous to just have a funny initiative. She wanted her school. This school is hers, it's not ours. And but what is the meaning of the school? I think first and foremost, it's a call from Mary. It's her, like she visits her cousin Elizabeth. She comes to us. People who come to the School of Mary need at a certain point after a while to become aware that it's her who came to them, not them who came to her. But it needs a bit of time to become aware of this. It's her presence, her guidance. She's a true guide in spiritual life. She's a master in spiritual life. She teaches us in silence. She forms us in her heart, in her womb. We are formed. This is why Saint Grignon de Montfort quotes Saint Augustine saying, all the elect, all of us the baptized are supposed to be in Mary, hidden and formed in her. We are all hidden in her, enclosed in her, like a pregnant woman. And it is true that we are formed by the Holy Spirit the best way. We have the best contemplation of Jesus with her. It's not through her, it's using her mind. It's because it's not a mediation, it's deeper than a mediation. You see what I'm trying to say? I'm dropping my means, I'm dropping my mind, I'm dropping my heart, and I'm using her mind and her heart. Do you see? There is an exchange here. There is I need to drop my ways.
Completely.
They are limited. My understanding is limited. My aims are limited. My act of faith and hope and love are limited. But God says, okay, you need to move from this car or bicycle who wants to reach the moon, but they can't fly, and you need the rocket. And Mary is the rocket. So drop the car or the bicycle, which are your means, and take on board the rocket. But take on board, in fact, you are taken on board.
Yes.
So why this feast is the patronal feast? Because in She is the guide. She is the one, and it's a traditional icon, the Hodigitria. The ones who shows the way, the ones who shows us Jesus, the way being Jesus. So she's the one who leads us. I prefer lead instead of show. She leads us to Jesus. She introduces us deeply. Her faith is so pure that her faith penetrates the bowels of the being of God and touches God at any time. But we don't have that purity. So so Mary is given to us. Her capacity to penetrate deeply in the being of God is given to us, but at the price of dropping our choices, our means, our solutions, our concerns, you know, the whole story. This is why it's every day, the scapular or the spirituality of proper Marian spirituality, I would put it this way, I wouldn't link into anything, involves a constant dropping, abandoning, detaching, and adopting Mary's ways that we don't know. But by this act of adopting, we are changing gear. From first gear, we jump to the sixth gear or fifth gear, whatever is how your understanding of the gears, you see. So we go in a completely unknown way, I would say, to us, but it's still a true way, a real way. And the Catechism has powerful ways to describe the relationship between Mary and Jesus. And this is what we want to achieve. We want to be her. You see, we don't want to use her or not. We want to be her, or if you prefer, become her for Jesus. This is why Therese, for instance, when she received communion, Saint Therese, the French one, she says, I pray for I ask the angels to clean my heart, come and clean my heart, tidy it, put everything in order. And then I ask Our Lady to come and sit on the throne, at the throne on my heart. So when I receive communion, he has the impression that he's entering in Mary. What do you want better than that? And this is given to us. It's a different way. If you want to please God, well, use the means that please God. If you want to please God, use divine gods, not your own limited ways, you see. Anyway, I could talk forever about, as you can see, about Our Lady. Yes. So I hope that people would take time to meditate on that, and so it becomes a way of life. Understanding the immense richness that God is giving to us, not only the new wine, but he's giving us the new skin. He's not giving us the divine seed only, he gives us also the good soil. And this is the gospel, by the way. This is the gospel. It's not Zachariah's faith, it's Mary's faith for Zachariah and Elizabeth and each one of us. This is why we sing the Magnificat, because we join Mary in her way. We say that she believed for us and loved for us. We just need to use that. I can talk forever about this.
Thank you, Jean. You've made it so clear and also inspiring. I mean, it is a privilege, real privilege, to actually wear the scapular. I didn't realize how deep it all was. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francesca. In the processes of canonization, beatification and canonization of St. John of the Cross, the witnesses, the people who knew him, said that he used to talk a lot about Our Lady and mostly also about the scapular. But unfortunately, we don't have anything written about that. But I just think that all what he wrote, this faith he describes, this purity of faith he describes, I want to believe, this is my choice, it's not in the text, I want to believe that in fact is Mary's faith. So when he celebrates the purity of faith, when he celebrates the divine modality, and I'm using his expressions, his words, I want to believe that in fact, in a very discreet way, he was in fact talking about Our Lady. And I want to believe that in fact, he used to explain these things to his brothers and sisters, but we don't have anything written then about the purity of faith and the divine modality. So very strong themes in his teaching. As you know, we are having this course on him, and through the reading and studying St. John of the Cross. And I think that, well, if we think about that the faith that we will be studying in that course is about the best representation, the incarnation of this faith, the best embodiment of this faith, as the Catechism of the Catholic Church is Mary. So I hope this also would inspire St. John of the Cross readers and new readers. Then you'll be more excited then to read, because in fact there is a secret in his text, which is Mary.
Indeed. Thank you. Thanks again, Sean.
Thank you very much, Francesca, for wanting to ask me these questions, and thank you for all the persons who will watch this video. Be blessed abundantly by this presence of Our Lady in your life. St. John Paul II speaks often about her presence in our life. What did it mean? It's a mystery. And a happy feast to all, and may this feast be every day. Every day is Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Every day is Mary, Mother and spiritual guide, master, teacher of spiritual life. And pray for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.